Blades of Fire is an action RPG with a ton of interesting ideas, like a very in-depth weapon crafting system and surprisingly strategical combat. In Blades of Fire, you'll play as Aaron the Lyra, who has a pretty rich history in the world, but for now all you need to know is that he is a blacksmith. A perfectly normal profession, were it not for the fact that the newly crowned queen has cast a spell that has turned all steel into rock. She then armed her soldiers with divine metals, allowing her to conquer and reign the land without much resistance, as pretty much all other weapons have become completely useless. I say pretty much, as main character Aaron is able to craft weapons capable of fighting the queen's soldiers thanks to a special hammer and forge he gains access to at the start of the story. And this forge is the most important feature in Blades of Fire, so let's go over that and way more. Real quick, thanks to Blades of Fire and 505 Games for sponsoring this video. You can check out the game and the free demo on all platforms via the link in the video description, which really supports the channel as well. And playing either the demo or the game gives you the chance to try this forge for yourself, as it's the most unique part of Blades of Fire, with most of the other mechanics in the game revolving around it in some way. I won't overwhelm you with the full explanation right away, but you can return to this forge from any checkpoint to craft new weapons. You pick a weapon type, design it by customizing different subsections like the pommel or the shape of the blade, and then play a mini game where you have to recreate this outline by hammering the metal into shape as best you can. Then you can name your creation and take it out for a spin. Now if you're anything like me and want to experiment, you'll quickly build a selection of weapons, so good to know that you can slot up to 4 weapons at a time that you can quickly swap between. In fact, switching between weapons is highly encouraged for multiple reasons. While each one will feel different, your combat options for each one are very similar, meaning you don't need to learn a new set of combos whenever you switch. Aaron has access to a sidestep and dodge roll, a block/parry, and regular and charged attacks, but both regular and charged attacks can be swung from 4 different directions. Each of the face buttons is tied to an attack direction, so for example, triangle or Y makes you swing for the head, while square or X makes you slash from the left. This matters because enemies have different damage resistances on different parts of their bodies. A strike to the head is less effective when the enemy is wearing a heavy helmet, and in some cases might even mean the hit is completely blocked. So you want to try out different strategies for attacking and defending until you figure out what an enemy's weak spots are. The sort of weapon you use also plays a big part in this, as switching up your damage type is another way in which you can bypass an enemy's defense. You have 3 types of damage: slashing, thrusting, and blunt. Generally speaking, slashing is good for multiple unarmored enemies, as the wide swings can easily hit multiple targets, whereas thrusts are good for high single target damage and armor penetration. Blunt completely clobbers armor, but is expectedly tied to slower weapons like a two-handed mace. I've also yet to find a blunt weapon with a secondary damage type, whereas bladed weapons like swords and spears can switch between a slashing and a thrusting moveset. As I said, you can also switch weapons on the fly, and you actually see a colored outline on an enemy when you do, to show how effective this damage type is going to be. Swapping often to counter enemies with the most effective weapons will be key to success, and it's made extra rewarding because you're constantly unlocking new weapons to craft. You actually unlock these mostly by fighting, as the weapons you're able to make are directly tied to the enemies you are facing. And real quick, if you like the video so far, a like would really help me out. But yeah, you're effectively making your own copy of an enemy's weapon, and your progress is marked by how many of that specific enemy type you've killed. Since you're constantly encountering new foes, you are expanding your arsenal very often, and there's even more if you take the time to properly explore the world. You can find these statues that are holding a specific weapon type, and if you present them with the same type of weapon, you'll unlock new parts so you can further customize your own creations. These parts change the way a weapon handles, such as increasing damage at the cost of stamina, and the different metals you unlock by finding new crafting materials can change weapon stats and behavior even further. So the more you play, the more you are able to customize your blades, hammers, and axes to your liking. You'll also be able to upgrade Aaron himself by collecting gemstones to upgrade your max health and stamina, or find special scrolls called cryptexes. These allow you to invest a point in a sort of skill tree, so for example, there's one that increases the healing power and the amount of charges on your healing potion. There are a ton of rewards for exploring, and in general, the level design feels very reminiscent of Dark Souls 1, meaning that while the game is technically an open world, it feels like a selection of different zones and levels that are all connected to one another. These levels also contain a ton of shortcuts and hidden side paths, so while you should not expect sprawling fields or forests, there's a lot to be discovered discovered by going off the beaten path. There's even a slight element of Metroidvania, as you can unlock powerful runes for your weapons that grant access to new areas. Weapons inscribed with runes are able to hit spectral enemies like these enchanted weapons, and depending on the rune can interact with the environment in different ways. The first one I found, the time rune, is able to revert time on an object. So for example, turn this broken bridge back in time to before it was broken so we can actually use it. You want to be especially careful with these weapons, as you can only reapply a rune at a specific NPC that can appear at various spots in the world. And what do I mean by careful? Well, there are several ways in which you can lose a weapon, both temporarily and permanently. Since the game has no experience system, you instead drop your currently held weapon on the ground if you die, and you need to make it back to that spot if you want to reclaim it. Now luckily there's no limit to the amount of times you could try to get it back, but it's still an inconvenience to miss one of your main weapons. But that's only a temporary setback. You can also lose a weapon permanently if it loses durability. Once this number under the weapon reaches 0, it breaks, meaning it's unusable until you either repair or disassemble it. Weapons can only be repaired by spending a star, which you earn during the crafting minigame I described earlier. So basically, the better you do there, the longer you are able to use the weapon you crafted. Luckily, you can always apply your highest earned score without playing the minigame, so if you've done well once, you're not slowed down by this process anymore. After spending all of those stars, a weapon can be disassembled to earn some of its materials back, or it can be gifted to a special NPC who will trade it for materials of your choice. One key stat you really want to pay attention to during crafting is stamina, as this resource has a huge impact on gameplay. While you can upgrade your base stamina as I mentioned, your active available stamina is also decided in part by what weapon you are wielding. Dodging and attacking obviously costs stamina, and the lower this resource gets, the slower you will strike and move. Holding block for a short while will cause your stamina to quickly regenerate, but you have to be careful not to take too many hits, as this will break your guard. You can also try and time your blocks perfectly, which will instead trigger a parry. After a parry, you have unlimited stamina for a short duration, so mastering these will be key to your success in combat. Now all of this is definitely easier said than done, as Blades of Fire can be a pretty challenging game. While combat looks simple, managing different attack directions, cycling weapons on the fly, and learning the timings to parry definitely takes some learning, but especially the one-on-one boss fights are very satisfying to master. Challenge doesn't just come in the way of combat, as one of the first dungeons you'll face includes multiple mechanics that make the level a lot scarier. You'll need to escort this weirdly cute baby skeleton through a fort by carrying him on your back, but there are special types of enemies that will try and kidnap him from you. At this point, you need to find his location by interacting with one of these scrolls and retrieve him before you move on to your next objective. And then after your introduction to the boss of the area, this giant spectral monster will materialize out of thin air and chase you through the level, while you're also still hunted by the enemies that want to steal your little guy. That might sound overwhelming, but the fact that there are so many shortcuts in this level makes going back for the kid pretty quickly if he ever gets taken away. And you don't have to face the dangers of the world alone either, as while the skeleton boy is just a temporary companion, you will always have your young companion Atso at your side. He functions as your scribe, taking notes of the places you find and the people you meet. But most importantly, he keeps a pretty expansive journal on any enemies that you come across, and will expand their journal entries the more you fight and defeat them. Reading up on these reveals valuable information on their weaknesses and how to best fight them, some of which Atso will also shout out during combat. If you ever get tired of his advice though, you can send him back to camp so he can work on his notes in peace. So totally check out Blades of Fire via the link in the description, as it's out now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and the Epic Games Store on PC. Remember to subscribe to not miss the next video, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and you can watch more of our content by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.